Hey folks, Jonathan again. Wasn't planning on doing any more videos on this rat rod engine before I had it together, but started working on it a little bit and decided to go ahead and do a video. So we got to do a little bit of fabrication. This is where the clutch port came out. Of course, it had the rubber, big rubber over it. Had a linkage set up on it, which was pretty intricate. The pedal was actually close, and on this side it was just linkage. But my issue is, and the issue I ran into, and let me grab the my new slave cylinder and I'll show you. Okay, anybody that's ever messed with a clutch, you know, the old manual linkage instead of the newer stuff, you know, there's a fork that comes out here and it's got to be pressed, so it's got to go back. And our problem is we've got a starter hump right here, and absolutely no way to mount the slave cylinder in and be able to get to where we need to get to, you know, in any easy fashion. Luckily, I pulled this thing apart, and on the other side was a cover. And you don't see this very often, or I've never seen it before, but I have changed it all around and put it on this side. Now this just had a blank cover on it, and thankfully, since it's industrial, you know, it's probably made to put in different machines and different applications, so you know, they did a little bit of adjustability here. And what I'm going to do, since I was able to change it to this side, and there's a nice plate here, and I've already ran a tap through the holes and got the holes cleaned out good, we're going to make a bracket to be able to bolt this on. And after doing some measuring and such, I was able to figure out that I could come out a little bit with this fork. I'm actually going to weld a piece on it for this rod to slide into, and this is actually an adjustable hydraulic clutch, and this is an original rod off of a 59 or 60 Ford. So we're actually going to make a piece that goes on, and we're going to make a piece to mount this to the side of the bell housing, and we may angle it just a little bit. The angle is not going to hurt it, especially the way that this nut is tapered on the end. You know, it's made to fit inside of a ball, so, or a socket sort of. So we will make that piece and go ahead and get this on there and try to get it at the right height. Now you want to keep your bleeder, try to get it higher than where your line is. In other words, you wouldn't want to mount it like this, because you'll never get your air out of it if your bleeder is lower than your where your line goes in. And this can't be changed. Some of them you can actually take the bleeder out and put it in the other hole and put the line at the bottom. So we want to make sure that we have it tilted at least straight. And it's hard to see, but they've actually got the line a little bit lower into an angle, and this originally mounted straight up and down just like that. So we're going to try to get it back about straight, or we can rotate it just a little bit to the right. If we rotate it, you know, that'll probably make it even easier to bleed. And you know, the higher your bleeding point is. And so we're going to get that mounted on there, get a bracket made that bolts on here, bolts onto the slave cylinder, and then we'll make a piece for here. And what I'll do is I'll make it with this thing collapsed entirely, and we'll still be able to adjust it a little bit there and back and forth to be able to get it exactly where we want it, which I don't think we'll have any problem. And that'll leave us with just the only thing we'll have to do is you know, get our line hooked up and get it bled out on this, and that shouldn't be a problem. And I'll show you some other parts I'd picked up. This is all of our wheel cylinders. You know, we was going to try to go with disc brakes, but we decided against it. We're going to go ahead and go back original with drum brakes, and just to make things a little easier, because time-wise I don't have as much time as I'd like to have to work on it. But I've got 4 new wheel cylinders. I got new brake shoes for the front, new brake shoes for the back. We got all new rubber lines, the 2 for the front, 1 for the back. We've got a new clutch master cylinder, and these are new parts too. They're not remanufactured parts. But we've got a new clutch master cylinder here, and we've got a new brake master cylinder also in the other box. And so we'll be able to make our, you know, our lines up and everything, and the entire brake system will be new on this truck. And you know, when you're building a vehicle, you know, whether it's a rat rod or you're calling it a rat rod or hot rod or anything you want to call it. But the point is when you're building a vehicle, you need to build it safe, and the brakes are probably the most important, or one of the most important anyway. And so we're going to do each wheel. I've actually got a rotor or a drum lathe here. If the drums look bad, we can turn the drums. We've got the parts truck out there, which there's not much on, but it does have one front drum and 2 rear drums if we happen to need them the day of the build, and you know, brake parts, springs, whatever, if we need to pull them out. So I think we've got that covered. I finally got the drive shaft figured out. We're going to add a cross member in, have a 2-piece shaft, and actually found the U-bolts I needed for the yoke. We've got, like I said, we've got the turbo on. It's blowing oil, but we've got the cat turbo to put back on it. It's a 4-inch inlet also, so we got our new air filter. We'll just swap it over. We're already running a GM alternator, so we're fine on the alternator. I may run this by the car wash, sit it on one of the rollback beds, or sit it on a trailer or something and run it to the car wash and clean it up some. And then again, I may not, so we'll decide on that. But I want to show everybody where we was at and how lucky we got on this this clutch setup. And it wasn't too bad. I had to pull the transmission back out, and the ball that goes in that the fork rides on actually has a flathead screw that's countersink, and it screws into the back of it to hold it on. So we pulled the transmission out, swapped it to the other side, put it back in, put the fork and the throat bar and everything back in just like it was, just facing the other way. And that worked out really good, because this was gonna be a real pain. I was actually gonna have to use the linkage somehow and put it back here pushing, to reverse the direction of it. And we've dodged that bullet for sure. And I'm just glad they made it that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a bracket cut out here and made, and I'll show you more. Okay folks, here's what we've got. I took a piece of, this is 3x3, 3/8 thick angle iron, and now I just cut this on the bandsaw, my big vertical bandsaw, but it didn't take but just a couple minutes to cut it out. Got a little grinding to do to make it how I want it. My blade is, the width of my blade is actually too wide to cut any really sharp turns. So I can grind that, not a big deal, but this will actually bolt on just like this, just with the 2 bolts, and hopefully you can see that. And the slave cylinder, if I can get it where you can see it here, will actually go right up in here and bolt on. And when this bolt's on the side with the 2 bolts, and these are 7/16 thread bolts, coarse thread, this will bolt on and bring us right back where we need to be. And I think that's going to work out fine. Now I used 3/8. I could have used 1/4, but we want to build this to where we'll never have a problem with it, or nobody will ever have a problem with it. Also, we want to try not to do anything fabricating on this. I could grind this at an angle and get it angled in where I want it or where I need it, but I think with the length that this throw is and the length of this rod, the rod's actually kind of short, or the fork, so we can come out far enough to get this centered perfect. But I wanted to make it where if somebody had a problem with this later, they can go buy a 1960 Ford part, put back on it without having to, doing any machining on it or fabricating. So we'll go ahead and get our 2 holes punched in there and get it on where we need it. Our 2 holes for this, and then we've got to drill 2 holes for the slave cylinder. We want to get them on the block first, and then we'll figure out exactly where we want to put them on this for the slave cylinder. But and then a little grinding, straightening out, but we'll get that and I'll show you more. Okay folks, I've got this part done. I've got it bolted on and cut it out by like I wanted it, and shouldn't give any trouble. These bolts are 7/16 also, so plenty strong enough. And then of course our bracket, we won't ever have any trouble with it. I mean, it's as good as a factory, or if not better. You know, these pretty hard to move, but they're not so hard that it's going to bend our bracket or anything like that. But so now all I've got to do is get set up for the other end, and I think it's going to work out just fine here. It may be angled in just a little bit because I didn't angle our slave sonar in this way any. You know, I wanted, instead of keep it straight, to angle it this way, but it was going to be too much trouble with this. I don't think it's going to give us any issues. This thing travels 1.5 inches, and I'm not sure how much it'll travel when we hit the pedal, but luckily we'll be adjustable, so I don't think we'll have any trouble. If we do, everybody will know it at the build for sure. So, but we'll see how it works out. And you know, this is going to be angled just a little bit, but I don't want to go very far with it. And of course, it's a ball inside here on the end of this. It's rounded and it fits inside of a cup, just like a wheel cylinder. So, but I will go ahead and get something figured out on this end, and I will show you more. Okay folks, as you can see, I've got a piece on here. This is actually a piece of the 3/8, and I countersink it on each side, and you can see why it's countersink on the bolt, and that'll actually let it, it's rounded, so it'll let it pivot back and forth, and so that'll work out fine. I was worried about the distance out from the ball to here, so what I done is I went out back and got a bell housing that was already a hydraulic clutch, and got to looking. And as you can see, and I actually checked a regular fork, and the regular fork on a mechanical clutch with the linkage stops about right here, and the fork on a hydraulic clutch is much longer. And so you can see it's different because the linkage gives you a mechanical advantage, and this is pushing directly on it, and you know, the longer the distance, the more leverage you're going to have. So I went ahead and went longer with that, got us lined up, you know, just about straight, and got this on. And what I did was cut out these pieces, and this will actually fit right in here, and we'll weld in as a gusset on top and bottom, and we'll get them welded in real good and get that finished up. Now I'll show you more. Okay folks, our clutch is hooked up and ready to go. I think everything's going to work out fine, and maybe we can get the last few things figured out on the build. Still got to do something about a radiator and a fuel tank, but besides that, I think we've got everything where we need it. Got to change out that turbo. It won't take long, and we should be ready. So appreciate everybody watching, subscribing, commenting, and hopefully everybody will tune in for the build, and everything will go fine. So, all right, bye.